Hi, welcome to our 8th season of Blues Talk, where again John, Dave and myself are going to look back over Leinster's pretty emphatic victory against the Dragons, all of the other Pro 12 action, look forward to our game against Cardiff next weekend, and of course review the new South Africans joining the Pro 14. So boys, I suppose we'll get that out of the way first. What do you think of the two new teams joining the league? Good, bad?
In theory, great. I think
absolutely.
it had to be done. Something had to be done. Everybody's saying it. If you keep going, doing what you're doing, you're going to stagnate. Not to go backwards is to go forwards and all that. So on that basis, great. Unfortunately, it was hastily arranged, which hats off to the Pro 14 for getting it done so quickly. But because of that, you've got a couple of things. You've got the two South African teams in a bit of disarray because they weren't sure where they're going to be in or not. A lot of their players left, especially the Kings.
Because they're not, the Kings themselves don't play in the Currie Cup.
Yeah.
So they had their squad had kind of emptied for the summer.
Yeah, so it didn't work so well. Plus they've had a season of Super Rugby and they're probably going to be a bit fatigued as our season goes on. Until that, they do have a big break in the middle of the season.
But you could see that even in the game against Llanelli, like they were. I actually watched the first half of that match.
They're competitive, right?
And
then
half time, they should have scored.
Yeah.
They didn't, and it was half time, and then I had to go out, and
Yeah.
then I saw that they were thumped in the second half.
Yeah, well, that's it. You see, I mean, the thing is, it's not going to be easy. They're not going to hit the ground running straight away. Although I'd still say they'd be pretty fearsome at home, particularly the Cheetahs because they play, at altitude, but and the high veld. But I still think that it's an interesting thing because it's always been a threat that South African rugby has held over the rest of Southern Hemisphere rugby. That it doesn't really suit us to play with you guys in New Zealand. It doesn't really suit us to play with you guys in Argentina. We'd really actually like to play in Europe. So the typical guy can sit down with his dinner and watch a rugby match at tea time, which he can't do in Sanzar, but he can do in the European thing. The other side of that is South Africans love playing New Zealanders. I mean, it's how they define themselves. They define themselves in opposition to New Zealand. So are they going to back away completely from the Southern Hemisphere competitions?
No.
I don't know, and I don't think so. I don't think they
Though
should either.
the president of the SARU did kind of hint at that. He said it wouldn't be the first. Now he wasn't specific, and he didn't say
what he's hinting at is that they want 4 teams in Europe and 4 teams in the Super Rugby. That's what they're aiming at. They won't give up. I mean, think about it from their perspective. It suits them perfectly to have New Zealand opposition. Like they're a union-run situation.
But like when we've all watched Super Rugby, and there's vast ways. I mean, they've got very big stadiums. Like their stadiums that they play in hold 50, 60,000, and you see vast swathes of empty seats. And it doesn't matter whether it's in Cape Town or Durban or Johannesburg; they are empty, unless there's another South African team playing against them. And I'm sure they're thinking, well, there's oodles of cash in the Six Nations. Like imagine if South Africa got into that competition rather than playing this prolonged, rugby championship where again there's very few travelling fans. I'm sure there's some fans from Australia travel to South Africa and vice versa.
Very few.
But very few. Whereas,
imagine South Africans living in Australia,
and there's an awful lot of South Africans living in London that could go to, and even when they come on tour to Ireland, there's rakes of them come over, and I'm sure there's lots living here too.
There are, yeah. But I think that's what there's been a few South African journalists who've said that's what they're aiming at. They want 4 teams in each, which kind of, like you can see where the teams are coming from. They have the structures there. The Currie Cup, you can make regions or franchises or whatever quite easily from. I think there's Borland, Cavaliers.
But they have a history of provincial rugby.
Yeah,
exactly. They've got all the doings, which kind of. All the rumours about an American team or a German team or a Spanish team, it's not going to. It's much more likely there's going to be 2 more South African teams before any of them.
Well, sadly, current events have meant that whatever about an American team that may be back a couple of years if it was due. I mean, the idea was that the team was going to be based in Houston. That's not going to happen anytime soon, unfortunately. But it's a positive move. I mean, they're 2 teams. I mean, the Southern Kings have always been to a certain extent, they've always been the team of what is now the South African government. They were the team of the ANC Back in the old days, that was where the for want of a better phrase, the black South African Rugby Union was based.
Yeah.
Was based out of Port Elizabeth. So they've got a strong political will behind them. And of course you got the Free State, the Orange Free State, which is just a famous name. I mean, the Free State Cheetahs are a famous name. They're a big name in sport. Ollie LaRue played for them, and many, many others. And they've also got, they've also got Gray's Academy is in the Free State.
Yeah.
One of the great rugby academies.
CJ van der Linden and all the luminaries
many, many more
that came out of there. Yeah.
So, having those in our league is only good for our league. It's just a matter of when they get up to speed.
Yeah, and I suppose they have a free pass this season, don't they? Because they're playing back-to-back years and they're just trying to re-establish themselves. Up to maybe a month ago, I'm sure the players who were were contracted up to such and such a date, when the Super Rugby season finishes, they've got to find a new employer, not knowing that Pro 14 was on the cards.
Yeah. I can still see the Orange Free State having a bit of a say at the end of the season, because I just think going there is going to be very, very hard.
That's going to be. Do you remember the second test in Ireland against
2 years ago?
Was it 2 years?
Last summer, 12 months ago. Yeah.
So they just ran out of steam. That's what that altitude, the high felt, does to you.
Yeah.
They're 2 kilometers above sea level or something, and just the air in your lungs. It's just when you're used to playing in that. But you can stick it over from your own 22. B, it's just kills you. Something happens. You could see the Ireland team running around fine, 60 minutes, poof, just dead, gone. And that's going to happen to lots of teams.
There's 2 schools of thought on playing at altitude. One is get over early and acclimatise, and the other is stay out until as close to game time as possible.
Yeah.
And I think Ireland did neither of those.
No, they didn't. They went up like 4 or 5 days beforehand. They went.
Well,
they did.
I think they left. Did they leave some? They left some at sea level, didn't they?
They did. In fairness, you to a certain extent you're a victim of the host's planning.
Yeah. Well, they have the option this time because they've got Port Elizabeth first.
Yeah.
So they can acclimatise to the country and all of that kind of stuff, and they could leave very late. Yeah, well, there isn't much jet lag.
But it's just sorry. What I mean
is, a great opportunity for players.
10 or 11 hours on a plane.
Yeah. It's a great opportunity for players if you think about it. Right? There's guys like Leinster has a lot of internationals, but there's a lot of guys who aren't internationals, so they're going to get to experience an international tour, playing in South Africa in some of the most famous grounds in world rugby. So that's a great opportunity. That's I was thinking more of in Bloemfontein. But that's a great opportunity.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things, or one of the interesting things, is the amount of new coaches that have come into the league. We'll go through the results earlier, but I thought, Richard Cockrell coming into Edinburgh,
you could see him putting his mark down straight away.
What a great result! And I love how cocky he is. He's like, no, this is the minimum standard of my team. This is what we expect. There's no kind of half-assed what Edinburgh used to do. Play 1 week, not play the. Turn up.
You don't get it, and never turn up away from home. And Edinburgh teams were notorious for that.
Well, not this time.
More important than signing high-profile players for the league, signing high competency coaches is important.
Yeah. We've a lot,
and there's a lot now. I mean, you've got Dave Rennie, you've got Kieran Keane, you've got Cockrell, you've got Stuart Lancaster, you've got John O'Gibbs and Les Kiss up in
Bernard Jackman coming in.
You've got Scarlett Pimpernel, the mystery man down in Munster, whoever the hell that'll be. Felix, yeah. They
could sign a Super Rugby coach.
They could sign up. All bets are off. I mean,
you forgot to mention Mick Bradley at Zebre.
But the idea
that's actually a pretty good signing.
No, it is.
I mean, up until 6 months ago, Mick Bradley had achieved Ireland's best ever performance against the All Blacks.
And when he was coaching Georgia, they won the second division of the Six Nations, and he moved to Romania and they won it.
Yeah.
And also, I was just looking back at the results, right? So, Ospreys, they beat Zebre. They beat them 22-13. However, in the same fixture last year, which was actually the opening day fixture, the final score was Ospreys 59, Zebre 5.
Yeah.
So, Zebre haven't quite got up to that level, but they've improved. They've seemed to have improved.
Ospreys as
well. Ospreys have lost 6 of their last 9 games in last season.
They kind of felt their form
It
just
fell-
fell off a cliff.
fell off
I
a
think
cliff.
Tandy is in too long. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
he's probably should have.
He's crossed the
toddled off.
5-year Rubicon, as it were.
Yeah, and there's a few issues there with them, but they're not in a good place. So it remains to be seen how they're going to pick that up. I think Tandy's probably gone at the end of the season, no matter what happens. But if this was soccer, he'd have 2 or 3 matches.
He'd have the backing of the board.
He'd have the dreaded vote of confidence. But then you compare them to Clonettley Scarlets, who just seem to have moved on again. They were really, I mean, whatever about being close at half time, they really put them to the sword in the second half.
Yeah.
And their one player that they signed, the big name sign they got, they haven't bringing Lee Halfpenny home. That is huge for them. And of course, that's the super sport money.
But that put bums on seats. I mean, you
Oh,
could
yeah.
see that the stadium was, okay, it wasn't full, but it was certainly a lot fuller than you see it
Oh, yeah, yeah.
regularly.
I think forget
But like they
people
lost
forget Clonettley's a
DTH.
small,
It is a
poor
smaller
town.
town.
They lost DTH van der Merwe, and they lost more significantly
Liam Williams, yeah.
Williams to Saracens. So Halfpenny coming in is great and all that, but Liam Williams got selected ahead of him for the Lions,
Did,
which
yeah.
is plus the money that brought him in is mainly WRU money because it's a 60-40 contract.
Well, it was one of these things where Scarlets were we can't afford a press release. We tried to do a deal, but we can't do a deal to sign Lee Halfpenny. South African teams join Pro 14. We've just signed Lee Halfpenny. I mean, it was literally like that. I mean, in the space of a week. That's what they use that money on. That's a positive thing. Is that money, if the South African teams coming into the league brings more money, which brings better
players.
investment in the players, but be it players or coaching staff, then it's a positive thing.
Yeah.
I wonder will it make because as you probably know the rand is not in the most healthy state it's ever been in. I wonder will it just put more guys in the shop window for French and English teams when they see them playing in the Pro 14.
Well, whatever about the rand, I mean, it's probably as healthy as the pound.
Sterling isn't great either.
You know,
that's true. They've lost 15%.
Nah, they
You know,
deserve
from the beginning of Ian Madigan's contract, they've now lost 15%.
Yeah, he'd have been better off in Connacht.
Stop.
Well,
I can't understand how a play wasn't made to make him, or how
Maybe
something
it
wasn't, a deal wasn't done.
Well,
But
maybe so.
Connacht,
Yeah.
well, crying out for
Especially with what the
him and
IRFU.
Marmion in
I
Connacht.
mean, if you think about it, 6 months ago, 9 months ago, 6 months ago, the IRFU knew that Paddy Jackson and that certain things were going to happen.
Yeah, well, maybe they didn't know it was going to go all the way to trial.
I think once the names were involved, it was going to go to trial one way or another.
No, I think they were a bit annoyed with the BBC for releasing that.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
Well, anyway, let's just move away from that.
Yeah.
But obviously, Paddy Jackson's club, Ulster, they did have a fairly good victory
Yeah,
over
yeah.
Cheetahs. I actually watched that match. I think you all of us watched that match on Friday night. Very impressed with their back row. Like
they played very South African rugby.
Vim
Actually,
Diesel and his mates.
they did play. They played really hard, abrasive South African back row rugby, didn't they?
Yeah, well,
Um,
like the two of them are quality. Like
Yeah, oh, they are,
and
yeah,
they're quality boshers as well.
Yeah.
Like they can
Made
take
Chris
their
Henry
part.
look exceptionally good as well.
Yeah,
Well, he only has to do one thing now. You see.
Yeah.
yeah, you don't have to carry the rest of it.
Yeah.
But like,
I
there's
was-
a huge like behind them. You've got John Reedy, who's pretty good in fairness.
Yeah.
But after that,
Nothing. Nothing.
tumbleweed. You know, Mike Ross's cousin is great and all that, but he's very good. Not quite at the
Well, those two
The
lads
top
are,
level,
Those two
yeah.
lads are brilliant now. If you keep them fit,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you're going to have to rotate them around, and you have to question whether or not they're going to have the depth of their squad.
They have the depth to rotate them against certain teams. That's the thing.
And that's the thing about the Pro 12 or about Pro 14. We spoke about it umpteen times. There is this big divide between the haves and the have-nots. Like there's pretty much 5 teams in the bottom of the league that are going to be struggling at the end of the season.
I mean, that's the same with any league. I mean, you look at result, looking at the championship result yesterday, and because I wanted to see how Bristol were doing, they found it very, very hard against Hartbury College. So it's that's any league is like that. And Bristol fell out. Bristol fell out of the Premiership early last year before having a bit of a fight back.
Yeah.
But the damage had been done, and Worcester got their shit together, led admirably. It must be said by Donnacha O'Callaghan. He did a great job
They're
there.
still there.
Yeah, he did a great job leading them in troubled times. So I mean, the bottom half of any league is always pretty crap. You look at France; it's the same. Sometimes the top half of the league is crap in France.
Yeah, well, the top half of the league has a lot of money,
Yeah, that's a
and
lot
the
of
bottom
money.
half.
Yeah.
But then it depends how motivated they are, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes that. I mean, look at Racing a few years ago. They had some squad on paper.
Yeah.
Not the year that they won it, obviously, the following season. Even when O'Gara basically turned around and said, maybe our age profile isn't quite correct, that these lads are coasting it a little bit.
In fairness, paper would have put up more of a fight.
True enough.
Yeah.
Well, one lad I was very impressed with was an ex parish man from Leinster, John Cooney. Thought
Yeah,
he
he did well. Yeah,
he did
very
like, and he
well,
had very big boots to fill. Now,
Yeah.
okay, the Cheetahs aren't world beaters for various different reasons.
They're world speedsters, though.
They were, yeah, but
Jesus.
But like he had big boots to fill coming
Yeah.
into Pinar, you know, and especially how much they idolise. I mean, he's there east in the Siwa, up in Belfast, and you know he had very big boots and said to Phil that he came in there and had a fine game.
Very canny signing as well outside him. In
Yes.
Leliafano.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, have those two played very, very. I thought that as a unit, they played really, really well. So if you've got 8, 9, and 10, you know, ticking along like that, you've always got a chance, which
Yeah.
Ulster had. And I was watching it, and Cheetahs just could not cope. And it was the same with the Kings, actually. Could not cope with two things. One, the laws of the game been applied.
Like forward passes and
Yeah, stuff like that, and
Stuff like
offside
that.
and stuff like that. And B, a hard line defence like you get in the Pro 12. In Super Rugby, the refs, or to be more accurate, TV doesn't want hard line defences because it wants space for players to do fancy things in. So if you get a hard up rush defence, they always have a problem with it. The New Zealand had trouble with it during the summer. And they had trouble with it last year when they played us. That kind of strict Northern Hemisphere defence, it does cause them problems. And it
Rugby
caused
league.
yeah, and it caused Cheetahs problems and it caused Kings problems. You have to take advantage of those problems, and that's what Ulster did really, really well. With Leliafano, who kicked really, really well, kicked very intelligently actually.
Yeah, he's a quality player.
Yeah, he really, really. But I mean,
The only
I'd
trouble
only
is
ever seen him play centre.
He's off in January. That's
Yeah,
the only
yeah.
downside. Got to replace him by then.
Yeah, with Paddy Jackson.
He might be
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
He might be off as well.
Well, he might.
Paddy Jackson, all bets are off.
Yeah, but I think their intention is that they'll have Paddy Jackson back, and that'll be fine. And whether it will or not, now is another
Tell
Well,
the judge.
innocent until proved guilty. I
Yeah,
would say.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Okay,
but
moving on. Munster, I didn't see that game because it kind of clashed with
Yeah.
the other match. But like they won 34-3, but they were 27-3 up at half time.
Close
Like
to
they
that
scored
after half
one
time, yeah.
try in the second half. You would think that they would have put a bit of a cricket score on Treviso.
yeah, sometimes it's hard when you get Leinster have done it as well. You just kind of
Still, you want like that's the time that you would think that you'd be piling on the
Bonus
points.
point.
And I mean, I think they are a club in chassis, as the man once said. I was surprised that they didn't want to send out and put down a signal and put down a marker and say, "Here we are. This is us." Whatever about what people are saying about our coach or our organisation, this is what we're doing. But they didn't do that, which I thought was strange.
Well, they did it for 40 minutes.
Yeah. They did take an advantage to blood some young guys from the league in their pack. So maybe that's you take the hit for that.
And the other result before we get on to Leinster's one was Connacht. They went down against Glasgow.
I thought I was watching a game of basketball at one stage because the ball was going from hand to the floor so many times. I thought they were deliberately bouncing it. Dreadful conditions.
Yeah.
Absolutely dreadful conditions.
Yeah.
And it was one. I suppose you could say because from all the talk that's coming out of Connacht are evolving their game plan, where they're going to still play the same way but in different areas. And Glasgow were more used to that more tactical approach than Connacht were, and took advantage of that. But I don't think there wasn't much between the two teams. I don't think there was anything between the two teams really.
Yeah.
I think Glasgow are slightly further down the road.
Absolutely.
Than
yeah.
Connacht
Even
are.
though they've both got new coaches
Yeah.
who used to be coaches
Coach,
with each other
yeah.
a few months ago.
But Glasgow are more used to being in a position where sometimes you're allowed to kick the ball.
That's true.
Well, Tiernan O'Halloran kind of had a bit of a dig at Pat Lam a few
He did,
weeks
yeah.
ago.
He did,
didn't
yeah, he did, yeah. He
And,
was.
so you mightn't be all kind of,
Well,
There's always an element of that. There's almost an element of the king is dead, long live the king. You know.
yeah.
it's something I always thought about Tiernan O'Halloran is he never kicks. Maybe it was on orders of Pat Lam, but it just seemed that he would never kick the ball no matter what he would do. Even when he got a bit of a chance with Joe Schmidt,
He has a huge boot, though. That's the thing.
Oh,
Tiernan
is it?
O'Halloran has a massive boot.
it's very odd. Anyway,
Well, anyway, moving on to our game.
Oh yeah, we were playing.
I thought Rodney Parade looked great. Like the new pitch
Yeah.
looked fantastic,
Yeah.
and there was for
no rain
once
in fairness, no mud.
Nice sunny day.
A nice sunny day, and there was a great crowd there
Yeah.
again. Like I mean, it seemed to be that the certainly matches in September are well attended.
Yeah.
Especially in
Before the
Wales before
Depression sets in.
That's it, yeah.
I think Birch, from what I've heard and what I've heard him say in interviews I've seen him give, I think he's trying to introduce a note of realism
He certainly did
Yeah.
in his pre-match
Yeah.
interviews.
Yeah.
into. But he's trying to do it in such a way as to not. It's not all gloom all the time. But he's trying to say, look, we're going to have to go through the pain. There's going to be pain until we get out the other side.
He also
But we
said
do have to go through this process.
he also said he wants to see a bit of heart and a bit of character, which
He
fairness,
did. He did see.
you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely.
They were a bit outclassed in the second half, but they
kept
wasn't-
swinging.
Yeah, they kept coming at.
Well, they scored the last try.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, we were. I thought when I saw the team selected, I thought, God, that's a really strong team.
Yeah.
And I went through, who are we missing actually? Well, our 5 lines.
Yeah.
Then our international.
Somebody put up a team of players that weren't there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was feckin' brilliant.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just got the few of them written down. I'm sure I've missed loads. Ruddock, Geordie Murphy, Joey Carberry, Gary Ringrose, Dave Carney, Fergus McFadden, Luke McGrath. Of just the international.
Jamie Heaslip.
Jamie Heaslip, and then obviously the 5
Obviously, the
lines.
lines,
Five
James
lines.
Lowe as well.
Yeah.
You know?
It's kind of scary, really. What's going on there? The back row alone. Those guys.
Well, that's ridiculous. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
I'm sure it's stupid at this stage. Unless you're taking the piss.
But when everyone is fit, there's
Look-
going to be a lot of very, very, very disappointed young
It
men.
has to be. Yeah.
Good.
But
Do you know what I mean? In terms of,
I'm just wondering, is that going to cause, a fella puts in 5 good displays over the Six Nations, drop down because Sean O'Brien, Van der Fleer, Conan perhaps comes back in, or Heaslip, or, I name in another couple of Irish internationals. And then they're going, Jesus Christ, how can I get onto this team? I'm pissed off. I played 5 games, got 2 man of the match awards, and I can't get into the team.
I mean that is the other side of it. If you're bringing through an awful lot of players and you kind of can't get rid of them, you do have that kind of bottleneck. But on the other hand, it's a great position to be in. I mean, you've got Jamie Heaslip, you've got Jack Conan, you've got Max Deegan, you've got Quaylen Doris coming up. Geordie Murphy can play number 8. We're very fortunate. I mean, we've got. You can pick any back row out of that, and they can all play in all the positions as well, except maybe Jamie.
well, this is the funny
Max
thing
Deegan as well. I've
because
seen him play.
if you look at the guys that were selected to start last week, Josh Van der Fleer, Dan Levy, and Max Deegan, kind of roughly the same height, roughly the same weight. Okay, some of them are a little bit heavier than others, but they're basically what I was calling last season the RoboCop back row. Like they're like universal soldiers. They can all play in all 3 positions, which is brilliant and all that. But in some ways, you're lacking that balance that you get with a big lanky line out 6 and a big, a Rocky Elsom sized guy, and then a 7 who's on the deck like Mr. Jennings, and maybe a guy at 8. Obviously, it was Heaslip at the time, who's a nailed on 8 who does 8 all day long and is excellent on the back of a scrum, and that balance of skills is not when all the guys can slot in everywhere. It's harder to see a balance, and they're all trying to do the same job. Sometimes they're all trying to poach, or they're all trying to tackle, or they're all trying to the roles are not as defined. It can work, but
I don't think the game is as defined as it was.
that's true.
I think that to a certain extent, teams used height in the back row, maybe to overcome a shortage of height in the second row, and it's not really that big an issue now. You have lifting.
Well, also you've got.
I remember then Ireland used to pick locks at 8 because we always had
That's
short.
right,
We always had a poor enough.
Well, look, we've got the tallest player in the league, and we don't win 100% of our ball.
No.
And we don't win a huge percentage of the opposition ball. You know what I mean? And you got a guy who's 6'10", and he could be 4 inches taller than his rival, yet the other guy can get up and win the ball.
That's it. I mean, the thing is, a line out is a process, and there's all these different cogs, and if they don't all function at the right time, and it's not always the jumper, it's not always the thrower, it's not always the lifter. Sometimes it's different things. I was very impressed with how Scott Farley went in the line out. Very impressed. He looked very muscular in the air.
He's a great player.
Yeah,
Well,
he looks
I
like
like the way he
Yeah.
throws himself about on the park as well.
God, he was everywhere, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you see that kind of quality, and then you've got James Ryan,
yeah,
Mr. Aggression, who's 6'8" as well. Like Ryan and Fardy, for example, as a second row pairing, that has pretty much everything. And you've still got Devin Toner, who's, as you say, the tallest player in the league.
if he plays on
And
at the weekend, it'll be his 200th appearance for Leinster.
Dev.
Yeah,
I
fairly
think
classy
his
player too.
missus is expecting,
He's a
isn't
baby
she?
coming, yeah. So that's why he's probably not going to South Africa,
Mm.
they say. So there's a lot of tasty options there, and like you say, you don't necessarily need a line-out option in the back row when you've got two huge ones
Mm.
and another one on the bench. But also you've got Fardy's nous as a back row player, which, it's kind of going the other way. So you've got an extra back row on
Yeah.
the field. He can play.
I love seeing
in the
back
loose.
rowers in the second row. I love seeing it because it gives you that extra dimension.
Well, I still think
and
that
speed around. It's like Henderson. I love seeing him in the
well,
second row.
the best one of the best forwards I think Leinster ever signed wasn't Rocky Elson, it wasn't Brad Thorne, it was Nathan Hines.
Yeah.
Because he could do that. That's what he did. You know.
He played 6 occasionally, yeah.
Yeah.
And we used to swap him around. And
Yeah, he went down to. I remember going down to Thomond Park and playing him at 6,
that's right.
and slapping the Munster back row around like they weren't there. You know. So
Just looking through the team that actually did tog out, there's some ridiculous amount of turnover of players that have come through within the team in the last 2 seasons, let's say. I mean, guys like Rory, like this time last year we were just saying, God, there's a great young kid, Rory O'Loughlin, who I saw him playing down in Navan in the pre-season against Ulster. And I think anyone who saw him that day would have said, God, that fella's very good. A year later he's an Irish international.
Yeah.
And, even he got a good big up from Isa in the Irish Independent today. And
Didn't see that.
then you have like Ross Byrne, Porter, Tracy, Ed Byrne, Van der Fleer, Max Deegan, Levy, Jack Conan, all coming through in the last couple of seasons. Not to mention the 3 new caps. Okay, there's one guy has played in the World Cup final, was a debutee. But you had the other 2 fellas, Lamour and Ryan, who made their debuts on the senior team at the weekend. Like,
And Larmer got a try.
yeah,
Even better.
there is some ridiculous amount of talent coming through that
the
team.
the disadvantage we had. Well, not disadvantage, but a kind of an issue we had was that we brought through a team en masse, shall we say, in maybe 2000 or a backline.
Yeah.
And they all hung around for pretty much the same amount of time. 1 or 2 dropped off before, 1 or 2 stayed around later. But they all... So there was this kind of... There was a familiarity to the Leinster backline for a very long time. And then they all went.
Well, there was a vacuum.
Yeah, and there was a vacuum. And there was lots of things rushed in.
And there was a few injuries of fellas who might have been earmarked, like for instance Owen O'Malley.
Yeah. So you had all these kind of things rushed into the vacuum. And not everything stuck. I mean, Ben Teo, long term, didn't work out for us, although I think he served Leinster well. Dara Fanning didn't really work out for us. Guys like that kind of came in, and we had to sieve through that to work out that Roy O'Loughlin actually made his debut for Leinster A under Joe Schmidt, but he was injured, so he got a series of injuries. Tom Daly got a series of injuries. So like Owen O'Malley, it took a long time for everything to settle down.
It's always got to happen.
Yeah, yeah. And now you've got a situation where guys who would maybe all of us had, maybe not last year but the year before, maybe written off like Noel Reid, are suddenly, key players, certainly for the league campaign. So there's a bit of experience there as well in guys like Noel Reid. And then you've got guys like Robbie Henshaw, Ringrose, and then the young guys. So it's
Speaking of replacement centres, what about our number 12?
Yeah, absolutely. Jesus, he was brilliant.
He is, yeah.
His tackle on Gavin Henson.
Oh, yes.
Well, no, it was a run. He ran over him with the ball.
Yeah.
He had the ball.
It looked like something you'd see in WWF.
Yeah.
I mean, it just nailed him.
It looked like Jamie running over Rog in
Well,
2000.
We've seen
Yeah,
Issa.
yeah.
We've seen Issa now successfully play at 7, 9,
6.
10, 12, 11, 14 and 15. So the question is, why is he such a malingerer that he hasn't done so well at 13?
13, yeah.
Or prop.
Or prop?
Do you know, he nearly could prop. He can do everything else.
He's probably got the technique anyway. He's just a superb player, and he was superb. I thought he was excellent again.
And for a lad of his age to be throwing himself into... I know guys like... what's his name used to... Tana Umanga started out in the wing, ended up at 12 and moved in position by position as he got older and slower. And
Slower,
he used to joke that he'd end up in the front row if he kept playing, you know. So,
But like
But
the
like,
tradition in
to
Ireland
see-
is the other way to go.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like the peripheral out to the wing where you
and
won't
then
get the ball.
retire, yeah.
We won't do any damage.
But you know, to see Isa getting so stuck in and getting, you know, breaking through, running through brick walls there. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe not quite brick walls, but you know, running through players. It's the commitment that kind of takes is, you know, it's great to see that he has that. He's prepared to get stuck in and take the pain.
Yeah, we got off to a flying start. We got our bonus point victory and scored 5 tries in the process. So why don't we have a quick look at those, Dave?
Here we go. Here's Jamison Gibson Park. It was just a clever move from the back of a scrum, really. Their number 6 is complaining about being held off the back of the scrum,
Yeah, grow up.
and indeed he was being held off the back of the scrum. But you got to get used to that.
His first
Well,
game in rugby, was it?
He should be staying in the scrum and while until the ball comes out.
Well, that's very true. You shouldn't be trying to break early. The referee wasn't having any of it anyway. Gibson Park played well, I thought. I mean, one area where he doesn't match up, certainly to McGrath, is his box kicking.
No, that's the glaring one.
Yeah, but I thought his kicking was decent enough.
Mm.
I mean, it wasn't for that, but he does break well.
Yeah.
I like him as a player.
He's got great turn and speed. He
Yeah,
can
I like
play
him
in
as a
the
player.
wing.
Yeah,
He's got a decent pass most of the time. Nice little dummy there. But his box kicking.
yeah. He's always looking for the main chance, which I like. I like to see a scrum half who keeps everyone honest around
Yeah.
him, you know, because he's always up to something.
He knows when it's on, all right.
Yeah. And next one was our favourite try scorer from last season.
Mr. P try.
Yeah,
We've
or
a
from
couple
season
of
before last.
A couple of seasons. I think under Matt
Well,
O'Connor,
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
it? He was our joint second leading try scorer.
And it was fairly blatant. Like they just basically
Yeah.
fell under the ball and said, right, let's cover all of the space behind the line with our bodies so they can
And of course,
score.
new regulation now is
Yeah,
that there's no
it's a
conversion
gimme.
required. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a 7-pointer.
Which is fair enough, especially if you're chasing try in a hurry
Yeah, yeah.
towards the end of the game.
There's no point in punishing teams by having them have to play a
Quick drop kick.
quick drop kick. Yeah, I mean sometimes it's ridiculous. This is the one a lot of people were waiting for.
First of many.
Yeah,
It was very good bit of skill to keep the ball going through all the phases. Actually,
Was this where Ryan made the initial burst up through the middle?
no,
That's
that's you see that one. Don't worry, we've got that.
that's the Jack Conan offload one. I
Yeah,
think.
it is. Yeah,
Look, still kept the ball going, and once it went out there, it had to be scored. Obviously,
Yeah,
They
a
ran out
few
of
St Andrew
defenders.
boys I know would be very pleased with that one.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll tell you, they nearly dropped their soggy biscuits. I know. I mean, there's been a lot of time. I mean, we saw that try he scored in St Mary's.
Yeah, for anyone who wasn't at that game, it was awesome.
Yeah, it was just a wonder try. It really was. It
It
was
was
just
something
amazing.
like Drico would do.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
ball was kicked on. I think it was by Marsh.
Yeah,
He heard after it so fast that he caught it on the volley.
on the volley, and kind of just tapped it on a bit for
tapped
himself.
It on, caught it on the 5 meter line and fell over. It was
Yeah.
like if you tried to set it up, you couldn't do it. You know, it was really,
The crowd
really
didn't
good.
cheer. Everybody just went, "Holy fuck!"
Very good hockey player, isn't he?
I don't know.
I
what
think
that
so,
is.
yeah. Huh? I think he's a very good hockey player.
Was that a hockey or field hockey?
Field hockey.
He is actually. I think he played
Yeah, I think he's
Schoolboys,
yeah,
yeah.
Venture schools, I think.
Yeah.
Or Irish schools. Yeah.
Irish schools. I suppose somebody has to. Now this is the one that you're.
Alluding to.
Yeah, we'll see that bit. Amazing hands from Jack Conan.
Yeah.
Unbelievably quick hands
Yeah.
here.
And unselfish too. He's that kind of a player.
He is a brilliant offloader, though.
Oop.
How many times have we seen him
There
last
we go.
season? How many times did he do that?
They work
Mhm.
great together, don't they, those
Yeah.
two lads?
And Levy has put on a bit of muscle as well, and which did he need any more?
I think if
got
he's
it.
going to maybe play mainly 6, he could probably do it a bit more heft, which is probably what they're thinking
Oh,
about.
look at
See
that.
how his body reacts to it.
And he's good stamina on him as well.
Yeah.
He can keep going. He's a good engine, as they
Now
say.
here you go, Jason.
Nice break.
And again, an offload. And if you notice here, Angus O'Brien makes a very brave attempt to get carried along by James Ryan. Now, he's always been the real thing, James Ryan.
Yeah, like the thing that I was very impressed with last year. I must be just coming from when Stuart Lancaster's been in charge. That they just have this willingness. They don't have a prescribed, in a certain point on the pitch, you have to do a certain thing. You have to go for, you have to kick it if you're in there 22. Whatever's on, they play, and they can react to that. And you see that situation there. I mean, a lot of teams, you win a ball inside your own half, you kick it for territory. There was something on. You saw a mismatch. You're going to go for this and go and run through them, and then everyone reacted around him. And there was, you could see him as he was coming up to be tackled. He was looking left and right to try and see who was in support and give the offload to.
I agree, and it's great against most of the teams in the league. The problem last season, when it counted, the season, we didn't have a plan B.
Yeah.
Not that we didn't try to do it against better teams, because we could play that way against Claremont, but sometimes if it's not quite working for you, you have to have a plan B. We didn't have a plan B against Ulster. We didn't really have a plan B against Scarlets when it just didn't quite work for us.
Yeah, I don't know what happened in that Scarlets game. I still don't know.
And we definitely didn't have a plan B against Scarlets.
So what I'd hope is that we take all the stuff that we were really good at last season, and then add to it. Well, I presume that's what
the
they
team
did.
is in evolution. I mean,
absolutely, last year was year one.
We read through the 6 or 7 or more young fellas that have come through in that team, and they've got a year or 18 months under their belts now of playing top grade rugby. Then you've also going to filter back. I mean, like even Tyke Furlong's a fairly relatively young man. Even though he's a Lion, and I've kind of excluded him from the discussion at the early starts of the season. Same with Jack McGrath. Like they're two very young, inexperienced players, really.
And Keane Healy looked hungry.
He did.
So he didn't look
I'm
angry.
sure he's been usurped.
I think what they have learned from the last 2 games of last season is that you're gonna need a bit of oomph to see all the guys in the back row, see James Ryan, see Scott Fardy, see all that kind of stuff. So when you're trying to take a team, especially say a big French team, when you're trying to take them through phases and get them out wide and all that kind of stuff, you can't keep doing it. You have to just get them in and go, do you know what, you're getting a good few slaps, and only when you've given them the good few slaps, then you can go wide. We didn't seem to have that in our game last year. Like that Scarlets game needed somebody to grab it by the scruff of the neck and just beat the crap out of a few guys and go, right.
I don't think we had an enforcer. We didn't have.
That's the word I'm saying. And both Ferdy and Ryan could play that role.
Well, Ryan's still a young man, but I can imagine him. Give him another couple of years, he's going to be a serious operator.
Against Ulster and against Scarlets last year, what we needed to do at key times in the game was just stick the ball up the jumper. Yeah, we didn't do it.
And that's what you need, tough lads for,
But you have to be able to react and play what's in front of you. It's not just saying, let's flash it from behind our sticks like Connacht. You have to know when to play, and rather than going through prescribed, do this in this part of the field. Like, for instance, Tiernan O'Halloran giving out saying, even if we were in our 22, every team read us the second season of it because they knew we were going to run it from behind our, in our 22.
Yeah.
Whereas, if it's on, go for it. If it's not on, be clever enough not to just be foolishly suckered into, you run it here, And
I think that was the mistake we made at the tail end of last season. Not so much in the Claremont game. Claremont game, I thought...
Well, we gifted them 14 points, right?
We gifted them 14 points. But I thought we played well in that game, actually.
Well, and we had to try this previous try.
Yeah. So, not so much that game, but certainly against Ulster and certainly against Scarlets. But anyway.
Then we one more try.
Kind of the forgotten man.
Yeah. Well, I'm delighted to see him get his try.
Yeah.
His confidence must have taken a severe bashing.
Oh yeah.
Last season at the start of the year,
he had some strength to get over here, hasn't he?
He was Johnny Sexton's understudy.
Yeah, he was number 2.
And all of a sudden, Ross Byrne and Joey Carberry come into the equation, and he's straight down the batting order to 4.
Yeah.
And he gets an injury anyway.
Yeah.
But he's still a player. I think he's a very good player. I think he has all the skills. The one thing I'm still not sure, I've never seen him really impose himself on a game.
Yeah.
And
impose themselves on a few props there. So
that's one thing he has to learn how to do. Because I think he's got all the skills. He's quick. He's got good hands. He's a good kicker of the ball. Barry Daly does love an intercept, doesn't he? So the options are there.
And the Byrne twins love to play hooker, or love to play scrum half as well.
Yeah. Well, they're very comfortable on the ball. In fairness, they're both very good footballers.
Mm-hmm.
There's
No one
a
was
lot of
stopping
great
him.
strength here now. In
Look.
fairness.
Your man, that guy, I think it was a prop, was trying to hold him up.
I think in trying to hold him up, he actually swung him over the line. If you look here, he gets swung over the line by
He needed someone to come in under him.
Okay,
Yeah.
he wasn't a prop at all.
Yeah.
He was a winger.
But that's the job done.
Prop,
That's-
winger,
yeah.
similar, aren't they?
Yeah.
So next week we move to play another taffy team. Cardiff come over to Dublin for the game in the RDS. Our
Off
first
the
game.
back of a serious hiding.
Mhm.
If that doesn't motivate them,
Like they seem to be going through a bit of a nightmare at the moment. Like they
They
signed
are.
Franco van der Merwe.
Yeah.
Um,
Then they
Then they
released
re-
Frank van der Merwe.
but they realised
keep him.
basically, hang on, we can't afford him, and they basically sold him then to London Irish.
Yeah.
Like that sounds like a pretty poor message.
well, they
to-
also couldn't agree terms with the WRU for a temporary takeover, so they fell back out of that, and it's mainly down to the because they're controlled. The ground is controlled by Cardiff Athletic Club,
they have to
which
keep Cardiff in the
has
name.
to have Cardiff in the name, and it's just turned
no getting rid of Newport from your name like the
exactly.
Dragons did.
Mm.
So it doesn't sit well with the WRU bods. So unfortunately, Cardiff are just
Look, here's the
Not
thing.
very
Here's
odd
the thing
thing
with
to
Cardiff.
have
Cardiff have great fans and stuff like that. But Cardiff are a Betamax club in a streaming world. I mean, that's just what it is. They've got archaic management structures, archaic governance. The trust is just killing them.
But isn't that a very odd thing to have in the contract that you must keep Cardiff in the name of your like
Yeah,
that
but-
obviously goes back.
Oh yeah, it goes
Centuries,
back to the 19th century. That's that's when the trust was set up. The athletic club was set up. But here's the thing. I mean, it's great. I mean, Cardiff is a great historic club.
Mhm.
But until they get themselves sorted, that's all they'll be.
Mm.
They'll just be history.
But see, they need.
You
If
know?
they had a name, they could call it the Cardiff and
Yeah.
Glamorgan.
Well, you see, there's clubs. There's clubs in their region. Big clubs, big famous clubs, big famous Pontypridd clubs, who'll have nothing to do with Cardiff.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing to do with Cardiff while that word is still in the name. Simple as that.
so that's a bit of a Mexican
So
standoff.
basically, they're a one city club.
But you know what? That should be big enough. I mean, Cardiff's the capital city. It probably has. I don't know what the population of it is. I'm guessing 500,000. Could be a bit less. I
Yeah.
don't know.
So you're about
But
right, I
like,
think.
that's not a bad population to kind of base your. I mean, like, what's the population of Exeter? I wouldn't say it's 500,000. Let they won the Premiership last season.
I don't honestly know, but I'm
Well-
sure we'll find out soon enough.
I'm sure someone will
Yeah. And
look
the,
it up.
the other side of it is that, to a certain extent, Welsh clubs. It's very hard for them because obviously the national team is all there, even more than it is in Ireland. So it's tricky, but I don't know what they're doing. I mean, they do and they don't. When they have their players back, sometimes they don't look all that interested. We've seen that in the past. And they have good players. If they get the first 1 through 15 on the team, on the pitch, it's a good team.
There's less and less of them though.
But
every season.
they rarely ever do, and when they do get on the pitch, they rarely look that interested.
Well, you think about it. Like, just say for instance, take Johnny Sexton. Right, he went off for a 2-year hiatus over to France. His only club he was going to sign for was Leinster.
Oh yeah.
You mentioned Lee Halfpenny.
Oh yeah.
But he would have signed for Cardiff if that's where he played.
Well,
in
he
his-
didn't feel
in
that
his early days.
he, wanted to come back or say, "Well, I don't care, lads. I made a shitload of money over in Toulon for 4 seasons. I'm coming to the end of my career. I'm going to get my local team back up there."
He was running out of options.
Well,
Lee Halfpenny and Cardiff weren't stepping in because they didn't have the money.
Yeah,
but like you go,
But anyway.
okay, I'm not going to charge you 400 grand for my services. I'll charge you 300 grand for my service because I want to help my local club.
I don't know if any real professional wants to be that involved. in
No,
Cardiff,
fair enough. But
because
no, what I mean is that there's certain players that that they like O'Brien O'Driscoll is one of the best players, rugby players in the world. He only played for Leinster. I'm sure he was offered to go elsewhere, but he used it to his own advantage. But still, the IRFU stepped up to the
Yeah,
plate
but
and
there's
paid.
no comparison. Rugby in Ireland and rugby in Wales, the IRFU own rugby in Ireland. the WRU don't own rugby in Wales.
Well,
There's
they-
so many things
But
going
they
on there.
had the opportunity. I mean, we've
They
had
had the
this
opportunity
debate.
to own rugby
We
in
won't go
Wales.
around.
They had the opportunity to own
The
the
houses
Cardiff
on this.
Blues as well. I mean, look, at the end of the day, who's going to go and sign for Cardiff? They're shambles. That's when it boils down to whether Lee Halfpenny's been mercenary or been a really good professional. They're still. They're
Well,
still
at the end of the day,
Yeah.
they're the 5th Italian team for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
So who
we're
are
in that
who?
position
So John,
that if we
who
get
are
5
you?
points, well, it was of course you're going to get 5 points. It's, the
yeah, it's
5th
one of these no
Italian team.
winners. Yeah,
If you don't get 5 points, you're shit.
yeah.
If you do anything other than win, you might as well give up.
But
So-
John, getting back to the most important point, who is your up and coming team for this season?
I'd have
Oh,
to say
forgotten about
Cardiff.
Cardiff again.
Of course not, lads. Of course not. That was a running joke,
So, like, just
And
focus.
it ran.
and it ran.
Just focusing back on Leinster, like, are we going to see any more of the bigger name players coming back for this game?
I think you might. Well, I don't think Heaslip was only just running there last week.
Mm.
He's only just training, so I'd say he's probably going to sit out South Africa and be But the structure or the what's the word? The strategy now has to be get as many guys. Decide who's going to South Africa.
They're limited to the
And
number of players.
yeah,
I think.
that's what I'm saying.
They can only bring a touring party of 40.
So that includes
So-
all the coaches
Yeah,
and mates.
yeah, yeah.
So they're going to bring the 23 for the match day plus how many others?
I'd say
Probably less.
they bring 30 players.
I was about to say, 30 players is about the height of what they're going to bring. So they've got to decide who those 30 are, and any of them that haven't played are going to have to play this week. It looks like, obviously, the 5 Lions won't be going to South Africa,
No.
nor will Ringrose. You'd be lucky to see him before November. Heaslip probably won't be going. Devin Toner probably won't be going because his wife's about to have a baby. So outside of that, everybody who's fit should be getting run through their paces this week who hasn't already played. So, you can look at that.
We might see another Carney. I was going to say that.
Dave
Or
Kearney
Strauss,
should
is
be
he
back.
fit?
No, he is further behind than they thought, than they hoped he would be at this stage. It was in the injury report, yeah. So, yeah, I can't see the squad being all that different from last week, to be honest with you.
I'd say Strauss would have liked to go to South Africa.
Yeah, I'd say he would have done.
Visit some friends and
crack
family.
off
Yeah.
off his cousin.
Yeah, but I would say that the squad won't be all that different than last week's. You might see some changes between who started and who finished. You might see James Ryan actually get a start.
Well, I'd say, if Toner's misses
Yeah.
is expecting
Yeah.
Well, it's survival of the fittest. It's get those 30 guys ready and try and get through till the end of game 4 when the cavalry are going to come over the hill in the shape of several Lions and
A bunch of Irish
a
internationals.
bunch of Irish internationals. Whoever wasn't there, Toner, for example, probably Heaslip. So it's been an interesting 3 weeks. The first lengthy tour to South Africa by a Northern Hemisphere club side. I think Zebre are there this week.
Yeah, I think
they're only there for
it's
one
interesting
game.
that they did feel that they needed to put a limit on things like men and materials that were going under, because there's obviously a fear that clubs like Leinster and Glasgow, or the Irish clubs and maybe Glasgow, would be able to cope with a big tour better than say the Italians.
But
or
I
some of the
wonder
Welsh.
if that's fairly dereg and we just aren't really aware of it. That, like, just say for instance, if the All Blacks are touring and they're coming to Ireland or Britain and Ireland, like, is there kind of, the home unions pay for it, but you can only bring X number of people. Do you know what I mean? I guess there has to be some limit put on it.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, well, there are limits on international tours, so I suppose.
But the only thing
we're just
is
seeing
that,
this up close now.
that if just for instance, someone gets injured, a prop gets injured, it's tough. Like, there's no replacement flown down, which I guess would be different than an international tour.
Yeah, I'd say you'd be allowed to replace a prop.
I think so.
Yeah,
Well,
I'd say-
I
I
don't
they
think so.
legally have to.
But they said there wasn't. No, they said that if there's no injury going to be flown down.
Well, let's say you injure 2 props. You don't really have a choice.
Fair enough. I'm sure there's
You know?
I'm sure there's
There
exceptions
has
like
to
that.
be.
But if a centre goes down and you have to just make do.
Oh, you have to make do with that. Yeah, no, I was specifically in that one position. The specialist position as
So
well.
it could be walking wounded against the Cheetahs, and that's the
yeah,
last
but like
thing we want.
I read an interview with Cullen and he kind of made that point.
Yeah.
Because you were actually in the Port Elizabeth and Mandela Bay Stadium
I was
for
yeah.
their first ever match.
Yes, I was
So
there.
you were
It was
against the
a
Lions.
very windy place.
Yeah.
Very, very windy. And quite kind of a dusty kind of.
Yeah, it is. It's a
Oh,
dusty
Connacht
one.
will do well there.
They'll be well used to it. Well, obviously this is going to be our first home game of the season. It was interesting to see to read during the summer the amount of season tickets that were sold.
Yes.
It was kind of unusual, I suppose, that the PRO or whoever it was from Leinster leaked out the numbers.
Yeah, he gave it out as well at the AGM. It's 12,000. It's the full house for season tickets.
Great stuff.
Up from 11,000 last year. The big problem is, of course, we had 11,000 last year, and the conversion rate wasn't that high.
Yeah, well, actually, I saw there's a Wikipedia page on the Pro 12 from last season. I just had a look at it earlier today, and it kind of went through the average attendance and the highest attendance and so forth. One thing it did say, though, was that Leinster had a 72% fill rate of the stadium, or of the two stadiums for the season last year, which, there's a fair bit of growth that could go in there, and there was quite a few matches that were averaging around 10,000.
Well, I thought, from everything that was said at the AGM and talking about the OLSC's relationship with Leinster Rugby, and I've said it before how poor I think the marketing has been over the last year or two.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a new commercial manager going in there, and I think that'll be a good thing, because I don't think that the last 2 years would have won any marketing awards. I mean, you had a situation where the OLSC used to meet with Leinster Rugby on a monthly basis to bring up concerns and all that kind of stuff, and then you're getting a situation where Leinster Rugby wouldn't even put OLSC stuff into programmes and newspapers and stuff like that. So that's all part of marketing, So
Relations were a long time.
Relationships were a long time. No, but the PRO Marcus O'Bucala was there and gave figures on the season tickets, which were very encouraging. We're up again last year, and I hope that I was disappointed last year because we were playing great rugby and people weren't coming to see it.
Yeah.
So maybe there's just that knock-on effect.
There's always a lag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just that knock-on effect, and now they're coming in to see some.
But I think
quality rugby.
But quite often the rugby season, once May comes, it kind of goes into hiatus for 2 or 3 months until it starts off again in September. Especially in this country, because obviously GAA is such a popular sport that you have the emphasis and the media coverage shifts onto it.
Yeah.
Whereas this year, like, the season kind of went into June, because you had the Lions going on, the
Ireland tour,
the Ireland tour as well, and then
the Women's Rugby World Cup
and
as
then,
well,
of
which
course,
occupied the rugby fan for.
Of course, yeah. And also you had the kind of, again, bringing the Pro 12 back into or Pro 12/Pro 14 into the news again because of the South African team joining. So it's pretty much, there was talk of rugby within the media pretty much the entire summer.
Yeah.
Whereas some seasons, as I said, it just goes 3 months
The other
off.
side of that is you guys like David Kelly and Gavin Cummins writing about rugby all during the summer and slagging the whole out of it.
Well, what's
David
new?
Kelly,
What's
that's
new?
whose name I couldn't think of. I kept thinking David Walsh.
Yeah.
Picturing David Kelly's face.
Filled with self-loathing, as they were.
There is a lot of negativity, and I mean, I
The
used
league may not be the best league in the world, but the last thing it needs is detractors who keep going on and on.
But some
about
of
every
some of
chance they get.
some of the journalists are of an older generation, and they would have seen that the Pro 12, when it was formed, or the Celtic League, in fact, was a threat to what they grew up
club
watching,
rugby,
which
yeah.
was club rugby.
Which is fair enough.
Which is fair enough, because they would have had allegiances, whether it was to Greystones, Blackrock.
But this is
Clontarf.
Ned Van Esbeck and Sean
No,
Diffley.
I know, but I'm talking about, say, the Brendan Fannings of the world, and that kind of generation. Whereas Cummins and the David Kellys are a younger generation, which they wouldn't have had that club allegiance. But they definitely see the opportunity to, if they can point their 12 gauge shotgun at the league, they will.
Oh yeah, any chance. I mean, even in the preview, they were having, like, all the papers do their Pro 12 preview, and Cummins was just laughable. It really was. I mean, I feel sorry for the guy. I
But
really
even
do.
like when it came to
Maybe he doesn't
the
enjoy
women's
his job.
Yeah,
but even when
mean,
it came to the Women's World Cup, okay, I know, like, there was issues there, but it was like he wanted to publicise it and smirk as he was doing it, as if it was two fingers to the IRFU.
I was out at UCD for all the match days in UCD, and it was brilliant. It was really well run. The organisation was great. The ticket system that people thought mightn't work so well really did work well. And when you finished if you finished for the day, you handed your ticket in, somebody else could use it. It worked really well. David Nucifora sat beside me at one stage and lived. Stephen Jones walked across the road in front of me and lived. So, I mean, the air of
Were you in your
bonhomie
car?
and peacefulness.
You weren't
No,
in
I
your
wasn't.
car?
No,
That's
no,
pretty
no,
nice.
no.
I'd back David Nucifora in a scrap against you any day,
I
Dave.
don't know, you couldn't. I'd say now if David Nucifora was in a fight, he'd probably have to go on his holidays halfway through it. You know? Or perhaps, just destroy the women's team as well as the men's team. But anyway. So
Bitterness.
I'm not bitter. The thing about it is, I mean, these guys just they don't seem to care about rugby, but the thing is, they do damage the league, because if these guys are writing in the papers of record and national papers, and people are saying, well, the rugby correspondent says this is a shit league, why should I spend 19 quid and go to a match?
Yeah, like I just off air, I mentioned an article that I read in the 42 today, talking about Damien Richardson, a FAI manager. It's clearly a league that has an awful lot of problems. Very few people are interested, but there's some journalists are absolutely passionate about it, and they're writing about a guy who hasn't managed in the league for 5 or 7 years, or a bit more maybe. He's in his 70s now, and yet the enthusiasm that he wrote in that article was astonishing compared to some of the drivel that you get from inverted commas rugby journalists in this country.
One thing I know about League of Ireland journalists, for example, is they write about the problems in the league because they want the problems addressed and fixed.
Correct.
Because they love the league. Most of the Irish, I mean, I exclude Brendan Fanning, I exclude Jerry Thorne, I exclude Derek Foley from this. But a lot of the guys writing about rugby in the Irish national papers point the problems out just to have a laugh and to be snide. They don't seem
There's no solution.
There's
Like
no-
surely, if you ever go to a meeting in work and you highlight a problem,
Yeah.
that's no good. You
Yeah.
have to actually come up with a solution.
Yeah, that's the point of it, isn't it? And they're not doing that. They never try that. So I don't know.
Anyway, we're bitching about them now, bitching about the league, bitching
They'll be
about...
bitching about us, maybe.
Yeah.
So there's a few other fixtures of
Billy
the
will
week.
be blissfully unaware of
I
it.
doubt they even know he exists.
No, that's true. Anyway, just quickly rattle through the other fixtures this weekend. Edinburgh take on the Dragons. I think this is going to be a good benchmark to see where Edinburgh are. Like obviously they were two kind of
And where
equally
Jackman is. Two hooker coaches against each other.
Sure enough, yeah. But two equally poor teams they last season, and we'll just see if they've improved. Glasgow take on Ospreys. I think that could be a home win there.
Yeah, I
for
think
Glasgow.
so. Yeah, I don't think Ospreys have started the season yet in their minds.
Is that in Glasgow?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Munster take on the Cheetahs.
That's an interesting
Yeah.
match. A friend of mine travelling up from the
Cheaters against the
very
Cheetahs.
south coast for that one because it's a historic occasion
The very south coast of where?
of Ireland.
Oh. I'm sure that the hardship that he must have gone through
Yeah.
now,
Oh.
going from Cork to Limerick.
I mean,
I never said Cork.
traveling up to
But it was
a
Cork.
Munster match and not having to speak French.
Treviso host Ulster. We shall see whether. or
I think
not-
Ulster will make hay in that one.
Yeah, like I think Treviso were going back with it as well, from what I saw. off
Ulster
the
seems to
Munster
have
match.
switched to a bit of a power game.
Well, you got those
Oh, yeah.
players. And that
I mean,
back row was.
Yeah, but you look at the centres. Look who's playing in the centre.
Yeah.
McCluskey and Bow, two big fuckers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and they've got Trimble on one wing.
Well, I think like this is
Yeah.
a big. This is get off the pot time for Les Kiss. Like,
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
like he's brought in John O'Gibbs and Dwayne Peel.
Yeah,
You know,
and Aaron Dundon.
and Aaron Dundon, yeah. But he's brought in a new coaching team. Certainly, they've gone into the market and bought some very noteworthy names. Obviously, they're going to lose Charles Piatow next season, but they've still got a year out.
To
You know,
Bristol.
they've still got a year to make the most of him. I mean, he's a super player if he's interested.
The thing about Stuart McCluskey, as we said before, great lad, good Bosch player, hands like tits though. If you want to get the ball
Can
out
be a
the
bit of a
Trimble.
one-trick pony.
And
He
Bo,
does that trick very well, but it is only one trick.
And Bo outside him, you know, he is a winger playing 13. You know, at the end of the day, and he's not the winger he was either. His pace,
No.
even
But then that's a bit like what we were saying about Issa moving inside a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Bo played
Bo-
a test
Bo's
for
always-
the Lions
yeah.
at centre.
Bo's
Yeah.
always fancied himself as a centre. He played. I mean,
I
obviously
mean, he
not.
had Dricko and
he had
Darcy
Dick and
there for
Darcy in front of
years.
him, but when he was in Ospreys, he played a lot of rugby at the
that's
centre.
right. Yeah.
You know, so he's always fancied himself in that position. Where others have fancied him in that position.
If I was going to have somebody like Bo at 13, though, I'd like to have more of a ball player inside him. Yeah.
It's unfortunately their ball players are busy at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Connacht take on the Kings. I'm looking
That'll be
forward to
another
seeing that
interesting
one.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully the weather will be a bit better.
God, those lads are in for a fucking shock. I think it was like it was last Saturday. Jesus.
Well, they're not. I mean,
I
you should
suppose
have seen
Port
the,
Elizabeth. Yeah,
the
Port
wind down
Elizabeth.
there
Yeah,
was
yeah.
mad. You
No, I
lived
was
down
thinking
there
about
for a while.
the lashing rain.
No,
and
that's
stuff
fair
like
enough.
that.
Yeah. And Zebre take
Yeah.
on Clonettley. One thing that we kind of tipped on a little bit at the start was the Lions.
Yeah.
Like it kind of ended, I thought, in a little bit of
That's weird.
fiasco. I was actually on holidays and saw it just on a stream and didn't see any of the follow up after it. But like it just seemed to. I mean, my stream actually
Petered
dropped.
out.
Believe it or not, as the ball was kicked, there was clearly a penalty. The arm went up in the air, and then I was like shaking my iPad trying to get it back to work. Eventually came back, and there was
Doesn't
a,
really work like that, does it?
and banging the side of it, you know, Dave. had the
The rabbit's ears.
coat hanger up and everything, but came back and there was a scrum, and I was like, I was looking at the score, and it was like the same, you know, whatever it was, 16. I was like, what happened there?
I'll tell you what happened.
What happened to that penalty?
Karma is what happened.
Do you think there was someone in his ear kind of going, got to draw this?
No, I think that there was a good bit of captaincy from Warburton in
Yeah.
fairness. He did some excellent leadershiping, and you know New Zealand have kind of, I don't want to say cheated, but I'm going to say cheated their way to a lot of wins. You know, if New Zealand can't win fairly, they will cheat, and they will play. They will go for the neck, and they will go for the head. You know, they did against us in the Aviva. They've done against lots of other
We
teams.
saw it in the lines as
We
well.
saw it in the lines. So you know, Karma's a bitch.
Well,
boys.
Sonny Boy didn't get his full sentence, did he?
No, I mean, you see what they did. I mean, this is why they deserve nothing. The dirty sheep shacking cunts. I mean, what do you see what they did? A three half training match against three different provinces. That was one of his games. I mean, talk about taking the piss.
Shocking.
So the question is, was that a penalty? Who gives a fuck?
Fair enough.
I mean, I'm sick of them. I mean,
Yes, it was a penalty.
If New Zealand play wonderful rugby, it is the best rugby anyone has ever seen, and this New Zealand team is probably the best at it, right? But you know, if they're not allowed to play that rugby, they're going to cheat like Billy O, and that's what they do. So sometimes, you know, it's nice to see them get caught. Also, it's interesting. We were talking about the Cheetahs and the Kings. It's interesting to see that the Northern Hemisphere referees, New Zealand had real problems with their interpretation of the laws. And because I always think that Super Rugby puts too much of an emphasis on entertainment and not enough of an emphasis on the laws of the game.
That's coming from Australia. Because
Oh, it is.
it's
Certain,
like,
absolutely.
you know,
Yes, it is. But the problem is, you see, in New Zealand, they had real problems with, say, for line speed, the line speed that the lines are shown. Things like challenging at ruck time, they're having real problems with that.
Huge.
And they're having real problems in the air at
Yeah.
lineouts.
Like we say in the Northern Hemisphere, the scrum restarts the game. Down there, the ruck is kind of like
Yeah,
the restart of the game because there's no challenging for it. It's
No.
just in you go.
Whereas in the Northern Hemisphere, a ruck is, you know, here we go, boys, you know. So, I mean, they had real problems with that. So that's, you know, that's sort of, knowing New Zealand, that's something they'll absorb. They are like the Borg. You know, they'll absorb that knowledge and add it to the whole.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was a great tour. It's a Lions tour in New Zealand.
Well, you think that when, you know, again,
Great result.
the whole the whole every single one of the journalists was saying, you know, well, this could be the last Lions tour
Yeah, they're
because
going to get massacred.
They're going to get massacred. Is there any need for this? It should be just 3 tests, and it's going to be this, that, and the other, and yet turned out to be extremely successful.
Yeah, it was a
to come away with the drawn
series.
series
yeah.
was a great
It was
result. for
wonderful. I mean, the one thing I would say is if Gatlin were going to, he needs a director of rugby in ahead of him, in on top of him, because he does stupid things. I mean, that proximity 6 thing, that was just poor. That was poor optics. Even if it maybe it wasn't the most stupid thing to do in terms of
No,
you know,
what was
just
stupid
getting-
was the flip flop.
yeah
That was
oh,
what
yeah,
was
yeah,
stupid. He
yeah.
should have gone, look, this is what I'm doing, and F you. But he went, oh, well, actually, maybe you have a
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, but they did some. They have done. You know, it wasn't 6 players, but they've done something similar. They did it to Andy Nichol in Australia a number of years ago.
Shane
They
Williams,
did it to
Tom
Shane Williams,
Lord.
brought him
Yeah.
back from Japan.
You got to be careful of the optics. So you do these days. You
But when
really
it's a
do.
one-off, I'd say
yeah,
it's par for the
bringing in
course.
6 guys
6 guys.
and putting them on a bench and not using 5 of them.
Yeah, and
I mean-
running internationals into the ground like Rory Best and
Yeah,
several
yeah.
others.
Yeah.
just because he didn't want to call these.
It has to be said, Rory Best did a great job as a captain.
did.
As a Lions captain in the midweek side, I thought he did. I mean, a lot of Irish guys have added real honour to themselves by captain, like Donald Lenihan, for example. He's one of the most famous Lions captains without ever captaining a Test match. You know, and Murray Best, I think, will be the same. I thought he was very successful.
I think Joe Marler was impressed with his drinking capability.
Yeah. Irish players do tour well. They are known as good tourists, you know.
Let me see. They're Irish and they drink and they fight.
No, in
Rugby
terms of getting into a situation where you've got guys from different countries.
They're good mixers.
They're good mixers. Like they are.
Stereotypes. We're just walking stereotypes.
Well, every stereotype is based on a grain of truth somewhere.
Grain being the operative
Yeah,
word.
well, yeah. But no, it worked. It was a good tour. I certainly enjoyed it. My father-in-law went over for his second Lions test. Man's never seen a losing Lions series.
Not bad.
He really had a great time over there.
And Andy Farrell, what was it I worked out since, is it 2008? The All Blacks have lost 4 times to Northern Hemisphere opposition. Could be wrong in the 2008, but whenever France last beat them anyway. And he has been the coach. Sorry, they've failed to win 4 times.
It would have been
He
07.
has been
07, the
coach.
World Cup would have probably been the French one.
No, I think they had a tour over there
Did
after
they? Okay.
that where they won.
Fine.
But they just they haven't lost to Northern Hemisphere opposition. England in 2013ish when Farrell was the defence coach. Again, Ireland in Chicago, and then the Lions, and then the drawn test. So 4 times they failed to win. Were all Andy Farrell defence coaching. Make of that what you will.
Tyke Furlong must think that these New Zealand lads are a piece of piss.
Soft. Cheers, they'd never get far in Wexford then for this.
That's true. Well, anyway, boys, thanks very much as ever, and thanks very much for watching our first episode of the new season. Cheers.